Rupert was just a frog. Actually, he wasn't even a frog. He was a tadpole. And as a tadpole, he lived in a pond with lots of other tadpoles. Some fish. Rupert didn't like the fish much. They eat tadpoles. So he had hid from them. But other than a fish visiting now and then, Rupert's life was uneventful. Um, as the fish would try to eat the tadpoles would try to eat the larvae of insects. And so was the circle of life. Rupert was just there to be a part of that. Or was he? You know, Rupert was not born to be just a frog. Rupert had been born with a purpose. He was born to be the most amazing frog ever. And I know, you wanted a story about a crazy frog. But follow me. So, as Rupert developed from tadpole into a baby frog, he ventured out of the water, and unbeknownst to Rupert, there was a kid next to the pond that saw Rupert. Now, Rupert saw the huge, giant human, and at first he thought it was another fish. But then he thought to himself, I don't think that looks like a fish. It looks more like something else. A big, big, giant thing. But fish, I've never seen fish this big, and I've never seen fish walking 2 feet, and I've never seen fish out of the water, and I never seen boop. As he was thinking that, the kid came to Rupert and grabbed him. Hey, what are you doing? Don't eat me, said Rupert. And the kid started laughing. Wow, this frog looks amazing. I'm gonna keep him as a pet. And Rupert was like, a what? What's a pet? What are you doing? Where are you taking me? Hey, get me down. And thus started the story of Rupert the Crazy Frog. The little kid took Rupert and carefully put him in a little terrarium that he had built. It wasn't something simple and basic. It was actually quite an amazing place for Rupert. It had water flowing, it had temperature control, it even had some food in there. And every day he would get a little bit of food. He didn't have to do anything other than just jump around. At first, Rupert was hiding from the huge, non-swimming fish. That's what Rupert called the kid, because he didn't know any better. But then, over time, he started getting used to it. And sometimes he would even like it when the kid would stick its hand inside of there because he knew that meant food. And so he would get closer and closer. He soon learned that there was nothing to fear. And so one day he jumped over the kid's hand, and the kid was really happy. The next day he did the same thing. And so the kid decided to take Rupert out of the terrarium and play with him a little bit. Just look at him, just hold him. And Rupert realized that that felt really good. He made good friends. And so the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years. And one day, many years later, Rupert the frog and Alex the kid were really good friends. They would go everywhere together. But, alas, some things must change, and this was the time for a change. You see, this kid, Alex, was about to move to a different country, and he couldn't take Rupert with him. It wouldn't be fair for Rupert. I mean, it's not a good place for frogs where he was going, because Rupert is native to this area. And so the kid told Rupert that he was going to bring him back to the pond. And a few days later, sure enough, he did. And Rupert, as much as he wasn't too happy about that, he was happy to see back all of his friends, that some of them had survived the fish and were now grown-up frogs. And everybody was like, oh, Rupert, is that you? Where have you been? And so Rupert started telling them stories about all the things he saw during those years with the fish, the huge fish, the walking fish, which, as you will know, it wasn't fish, it was a kid named Alex. And so Rupert was telling all the other frogs, and this fish walks in two legs, and they make noise with their mouths. And apparently it's like they're communicating with other huge fish. Sometimes he pushes buttons on some things, and you can see little fish on something that's like a little book. And the best part, and everybody was like, yeah, you're crazy. You're the craziest frog in the world, Rupert. Oh, those are lies. There's no life outside the pond. Well, then how do you explain that I disappeared for like 5 years and then came back? Well, you must have been eaten by a giant bird who pooped you 5 years later. Frogs are not that smart. And Rupert was laughing so much, and he said, no. In fact, I was fed every day. We got free food. Ah, ha, 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 free food. There's no such thing. You have to go hunting for insects and worms and snails and things. Well, yeah, that's life in the pond. But life in the giant fish world is different. I get food. Really? And how come you haven't been eaten by anything? Well, this giant fish doesn't want to eat me. Ah, ha, ha, giant fish that doesn't eat frogs. You're crazy, Rupert. You're so crazy. You're the craziest frog ever, said everybody. And so Rupert understood that some people that never leave their pond never know what's it like to live in some other country, in some other place, with other rules, with other things. And they think that the whole world is their pond. And there's no need or way to change their mind because they don't want to change their mind. They just want their worlds to remain basic, simple, limited. Rupert was different, however. He knew about the world of the humans, which he called the giant fish. And he was happy that he got to know the humans. That was quite a privilege. Most frogs never do that. And he didn't mind that other frogs called him the craziest frog in the world. He had made a friend in Alex, and he would remember him for the rest of his life. And that's the story of the craziest frog in the world. The end.
Best story ever.
So what would you want your second story to be about?
About a rifle.
A rifle. Okay. About a rifle. This is a story about a guy named Lucas. Lucas had a son. And as Lucas and his son, as Lucas' son was growing, actually his son was named Taddox. Taddox.
Oh.
Okay, how about Priscilla?
No. I just like head.
Okay. So Lucas' son was named Taddox. And they grew and they became super good friends. But Lucas had an agreement with Taddox from before they were born. It was a tough agreement that they made. The agreement was that Lucas was going to let his body expire early in Taddox's life because Taddox came to this planet to take care of his mom and also to learn to be a grown-up, independent man. And he knew that he couldn't do that if his dad was around all the life. And so it was one day that Lucas got sick and his body died. But since he knew that was happening, he left a secret message for his son Taddox. He left the message hidden in a way that he knew that Taddox wouldn't discover it for another 9 years. for he gifted his son Tadux a rifle. And he said, do not shoot this rifle until you are 20 years old. And so Tadux put his rifle that his dad gave him in a drawer inside of his room and left it there so that it wouldn't collect dust. He put it inside of a bag, but that was it. He left it there for 9 whole years. Time had passed, wounds had healed, and Tadux was a very young, happy man. He was actually really good, and he had learned how to make every situation into a positive one and how to steer clear of people that would bring him down. So his life was really happy. But he was missing something, and he never knew what it was. Well, one day, when it was his 21st birthday, he had a big party. Lots of his friends came to see him and gave him presents. And at the end of the party, when everybody had left, his mom went to him and said, do you remember, Lucas? I'm sorry, Tadux, that 9 years ago, your dad gave you a present for you to open when you were 20 years old? Oh, that's right. It's been so long I've forgotten, said Tadux as he ran back into his room and opened the now dusty drawer with the bag and the pristine rifle inside. He looked at it and he said, all right, it's very late today, but tomorrow I'm going to go shoot it. And so the next day he went into a gun range, which is a place where it's safe to shoot guns for fun and practice. And he went inside and he prepared everything, and as he was ready to shoot, he aimed properly at the target, looked at everything, looked safe, and he pulled the trigger expecting a loud bam and a huge projectile jumping out. But instead, he heard and something came out of the barrel like a stick with a roll of tape, or not tape, I'm sorry, of fabric that rolled down. And there was a letter from his dad from 9 years ago. And he said, I'm sorry I pranked you with this fake rifle that farts every time you pull the trigger. But I did it because I wanted to get a last laugh out of you, even if it's many years later. Remember that this is just temporary. Time is an illusion and our bodies fade away like anything physical. But I'll see you on the other dimension. Make your life the best adventure you can make out of it. And that's how Tadux found out that his dad gave him a rifle that farts with a beautiful message, and he hanged it on his wall and made his life the biggest adventure ever, following his dad's advice. That's the story of a rifle. The end. Good night, Pequeñito.
Good night.